Hello, Yes.Fit, and happy haunting. Coach Cece here. I am ready to give you guys some trick and treat yourself on this podcast. Today we are talking about self-care. I want to give your Halloween season a little more treat than trick, though. So we're going to be talking about all those fun little regimens that we can incorporate into our daily lives that involve self-care and self-talk and what that all means and how it benefits us. So the first question that we all kind of ask is why? Like, why does it matter? What is the importance? What are we doing with this? So it's, common knowledge that everyone should practice some sort of self-care, whether it's, those detox methods that we've talked about or some kind of restoration factor for your own mental psyche. However, you might be intrigued to know that it's a little bit more important for your body to do some self-care. So talking about those self-care regimens that actually behoove us and benefit us physically as well as mentally, right? Some of the things that you can improve, research and studies have shown time and time again. Some of those things are stuff like lowering your blood pressure. Super important, especially if you have a very stressful life, job, and who can't relate to that, right? Who doesn't want nice, relaxed self, right? So it helps lower blood pressure. It helps improve your digestion tract, your system, as far as, getting that upset stomach. Personally, I have stress-induced acid reflux. So essentially what that means is every time I'm stressed out, I get if I eat, it does not sit well with me, right? It's not okay. The acidity in my stomach starts building up and firing off and feels like a very nasty heartburn almost. So definitely could love that, right? Easy, nice digestion. It helps improve blood flow. It balances blood sugar levels. It helps reduce your body's stress hormone activity. So not just stress up in the brain, right? But actual like cortisol stress release. So it's going to help improve that and actually ease tension in those muscles. So oftentimes when we do find ourselves in high stress situations for a long period of time, right, we're constantly like this. Maybe our shoulders are pinched up and we're kind of sitting a little bit tighter. Or another fun CC fact is I clench my jaw really tight, right? If I'm hearing some news that I just don't know how I'm going to move forward, I might just lock my jaw in a place without even realizing it. And I'm just keeping all this tension bunched in there. So being able to relax and let go of those muscles, let your fiber and your muscles kind of reset, right? That'll help your workouts too. So that's always good. It'll also help improve chronic pain. So if we're waking up with back pain, we're going to bed with back pain, right? If all that fun stuff that we don't want to deal with, that's going to be helpfully improved over time. Being able to boost your mood as well as your self-esteem. Like who doesn't want to feel good about themselves, right? So that one's kind of a more obvious one, right? Self-care, you're going to feel good. You're going to be more relaxed. You're going to be more positive, more ready to take on the world. So that's kind of one of the big mental things there. And it overall helps your concentration and self-awareness. So it helps what you're doing as far as your task at hand. So you'll be more efficient with your workload, more effective dynamically, and you'll be able to be more self-aware. Hey, why am I feeling this way? Why am I so lethargic all of a sudden? What's going on? So that's important to note that you'll just be constantly overlapping between those mental triggers and physical triggers as well. So being able to improve all of that overall will give you a better sense of serenity or inner peace, right? So before we move forward, just important to note, right? I talk about mental health a lot. That's kind of my thing. But mental health doesn't just mean if you have bad mental health, quote unquote, whatever bad might mean to you. Mental health is just like physical health. So whether you are someone that I like to call a mental athlete, you're very mentally sharp, you understand and have a lot of mental self-awareness, or you're someone who struggles, right, with mental strength over time, right? So you can get very easily flustered or stress is very predominant in your life. Self-care is for everyone. everyone, right? We'll revisit that a little bit later on, but I just want to kind of put that in your brain. No matter where you're at in life, where you're at with your reality, you can practice self-care to help benefit you no matter what you're going through, right? So, if this is some new stuff for you to kind of absorb, that's awesome. Do not think that you're alone, right? There are about 77% of Americans in a general survey that were asked, hey, do you practice self-care? Do you know that you should? And they went ahead and said, well, I know I'm supposed to, but I don't, right? So it's that common practice that we know self-care is something that we're supposed to do, and it's kind of put on the back burner. We don't set aside that time for ourselves. And furthermore, those people who were then asked, okay, so why? Why is it that you don't practice this self-care or this pampering, this rest and recovery that you might feel that you need? And people said, well, overall, the general consensus was lack of time and lack of energy, right? I'm just so tired at the end of the day. I can't do it. I'm just drained, right? So the big plot twist here is you don't need to have a whole lot of time. And even more so, you don't need energy to do it, right? That's the point. It's to restore your energy. So don't think it's an exertion of energy. And an even bonus feature, it doesn't cost you $1, right? So it's not something that you have to go out and do. It doesn't cost you money. It doesn't cost you time. You just need to make yourself the priority. And I know that statement has been said to you before. Easier said than done. I'm aware. We're going to talk about a little bit more in depth how to do that. But before we get to being our own best friend here, a quick little book reference that I invite you to research, study, or peruse on your own time is The Self-Love Experiment by Miss Shannon Kaiser. It's a great book on the understanding of why. As far as the emotional aspects of it. So we talked about mental health, we talked about the physiological benefits as well, but she shares her personal stories and her discoveries on her own journey. She helps understand the emotional connectivity of the body and the mind and how that kind of all succinks as one, and you feel stronger and you can find that passion, that drive, that motivation that will help you set aside that time, right? So we're talking about us not having time, us not being able to put ourselves first, right? You've got the kiddos, you've got the dog, you've got the job, you've got the husband, you've got everybody kind of going around and you're trying to please everyone, right? That's usually the reason why we run out of hours in our day. There's just too many things you're juggling right now. She kind of talks about why it matters for your own self-love. And I've talked about this before, but it kind of being able to understand that before you can fill somebody else's cup, you've got to be able to fill your own, right? Because if you're a pitcher and you're full of water, but you've got nothing at the end of the day, you're an empty pitcher, what are you pouring into those other cups? Those other cups being your job, your significant other, your loved ones, your family, anything else you've got going on, your finances, your future planning for yourself. What are you going to be able to actually invest into those other cups if you're on empty, right? So that's what this is all about. And that self-care is essentially refilling that water in that pitcher. So I like you to kind of ask those questions for yourself right here. You don't have to write it down, but genuinely think for a second, right? What drives you, right? What is your passion here? Like, what is motivating you? Each and every day when you wake up, it's not that I have to do this. It's not my responsibilities. I'm talking about when you're in your car, before you start going, what is motivating you to start the car? What is getting you to where you need to be, right? So that's what I want you to kind of focus on and start mulling over. What is driving you emotionally? think of it as dating yourself, right? You want to know everything about that person you're courting, right? We've all been there in the dating game, right? So when you first start seeing somebody, you're curious about them. You want to impress them, you want to listen. And unless you're a special kind of human being, you probably want to be nice to them, right? You want to make them fall for you. And so, with that concept in mind, think about it as dating yourself. You have to understand how you work, your function. So, that's where we kind of get into this side segment of self-talk. Let's talk about self-talk, shall we? The self-talk study has been kind of in psychology since the early 1800s. I mean, we've been looking at that stream of consciousness that never stops during our day. The psychologist Vygotsky, yes, I am so sorry for mispronouncing that. Vygotsky studied a lot in the realm of social constructs with children as they develop into the later part of childhood, trying to understand what that inner speech and that inner self-talk kind of mold into as far as personality traits, and how that development transcended into their adulthood and their actual being, who they identified as. More interesting, though, is, his study was there about that transition, but it wasn't even until over a century later, in the early 70s, we started kind of looking at how this affects us as adults, as athletes, and as professionals. So talking about athletes specifically, right, and their performance, there was a study in the 70s done where they basically had athletes rate themselves and what they thought of themselves. And essentially what it boiled down to was, in this study, they said the athletes who thought that they did good did well. The athletes that said, oh, I'm not a fast runner, I'm not a good this, I don't jump that high, I'm not this, I'm not that, they actually also were right about themselves. So what does that boil down to in our self-talk study? Essentially, that self-talk is a huge variable as to you reaching that potential. And I hate using the word potential. I've never liked it, even as an athlete, a performer, anything. When someone said, oh, you have so much potential, to me that was just like, but I didn't hit it, right? I didn't hit the goal. I just have room to make improvements. And I hated that because I always wanted to be the best, right? That's a competitive edge. But essentially, you can't hit that goal if you don't think you can. And so I like to quote a good, notable quote from Henry Ford here. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's pretty simple, but it's a really effective way to think about it, right? So if you tell yourself every morning, man, I don't have enough education for this job promotion. Well, then you're probably right? Because when the time comes to get that evaluation, to get that promotion, to move up in the career that you're in or that field, or even maybe taking a leap of faith going into a different direction, if you don't think you have that background, that knowledge, you might not be able to test well. You'll get that test anxiety, and then that bleeds into the results or the interview. And then, from there on, if it's constantly in the back of your mind that I can't do this, I'm not going to do this, then you can't do it and you won't perform well. Not saying that it's not in your ability, not saying that you were naturally this star athlete that if you just told yourself, well, now I'm a track star, that you're going to go out there and run one of those Yes.Fit races in a day. That's not what I'm saying, right? So you have those capabilities, though, to work towards your goals. So maybe you're not an all-star runner. Maybe that's just a fact, right? That you had an injury, you're recovering, maybe you were never really good with your cardio. It's just not there for you yet. That doesn't mean you can't work and change the mindset, right? So instead of saying, oh, I'm not a runner, you can say, I have discipline and I will run every day and I will become a better runner, right? So it's that twisting of the mindset from this negative to a more fulfilling, positive, self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. Same thing with, if you started as an overweight client for this fitness industry, right? So you started going to the gym and you're kind of, I've been out of shape for a while. I've been, a couch potato. Or after I had my kids, I have never been the same size. And you can list all these factors that you think of, but until you start thinking of, well, that's not what defines me, you won't break free. So we have to think about being able to change the way that we look at not just the facts, quote unquote, but the oversight of the big picture in it too, right? Going back to athletes, right? It wouldn't just affect the one football game, right? If you've got a receiver that, dropped a pass, that was the score, like that was going to be the touchdown that breaks the tie, like the team wins, and he drops it. If he starts thinking, I'm not a good receiver, and he starts telling himself that every time he's at practice, man, I don't want to do this route. Man, I don't want to do this play. Like, I'm going to drop the ball again. This is it. This is it. This is it. Then chances are he's going to miss the ball often. Not because he's not there, not because he's not running his routes, but it's because he doesn't think he can catch it. He doesn't think he'll make it. Therefore, it's not just affecting that one game. Now it's affecting the whole season, right? And that can affect his whole career. You see how it starts to snowball. So thinking of it in a new way will help you eliminate that snowball kind of almost avalanche. And you'll feel like you can actually take control or possession of your life in this way. So let's quickly kind of recap before we dive into so now what? We've identified the benefits, right? So we've seen how it can help lower all your blood pressure, your sugar levels get balanced, stress gets released into those stress hormones are now under control, checks and balances mentally, physically, your body feels better, right? Now we're talking about positive self-talk. So now you're instilling even more positivity. And this is just proactive. This isn't even talking about self-care. This is just talking about the benefits of having and going into it with a positive and open mind, right? So now we get into the fun part, right? The actually self-indulging, kind of relaxing, a little bit selfish pampering, if you will. By now you're probably thinking, okay, yeah, but you said date myself and you lost me because Cece, I'm not going to date myself. That's crazy. Listen, that doesn't mean you don't have to slip on your sexiest little outfit just to go to the couch to watch Netflix and hang out, right? It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean you have to go impress yourself in that kind of fashion. But on the flip side of that coin, if putting on your makeup, getting into a nice outfit, doing your hair, feeling good, feeling like $1,000,000 just to sit on your couch to binge watch your favorite show makes you feel good, then who am I to stop you, right? Like, you can do whatever you want here. And that's what I want you to take away from this. There is nothing that is stopping you. So if you want to get all dolled up to sit on that couch, do it. Be your best friend. Do that. It's entirely up to you. It is 100% what you make of it. And there's no wrong way to do this self-care except for not trying, not doing it, right? So aside from neglecting yourself, feel free to experiment with different methods and things that make sense to you as a person, right? That's what I meant by dating yourself. You have to understand you as a human being, how you connect to your inner self, to what you need, right? Maybe it's just that bubble bath. Maybe it's just a nice walk. We'll talk into more methods in just a second, but it's whatever you want it to be, right? So as you remember, a little quick reminder from the top, right? It costs no energy, it costs no extra time, and it costs no money. So these are a few of those tactical methods that I was just talking about that are cost effective, that they don't take away from your very busy life, your very busy schedule. The only thing is you have to reorganize, restructure your schedule so that even if it's 5 minutes out of your day, you take those 5 minutes to take this self-care. And it doesn't have to be an everyday thing, right? It's not that detox that we've talked about before. It's not that rehabilitation of that reset button, if you will, about mental stress. It's not necessarily your meditation time. It could be. You could use meditation in your self-care, but that doesn't have to be completely overlapped, right? Sometimes meditation's hard, right? There's a lot going on and it's hard for your brain to unwind and focus and get into that quiet space. So maybe your self-care that day or that moment is a little bit different, and that's fine too. You can switch it up. The more resources you have, the more methods you have to try, the more options you have for the day as it comes. And there's no real, you have to, exercise this amount of day. You have to drink this amount of water. There's no self-care. You have to self-care yourself this amount of time, right? There's no X factor in this. But it's see it as you come, right? So the more stressed you are, the more overworked you feel, the more problems you have to solve. Maybe that's the day that you have to reorganize your time, or maybe you just have to get through that day. Then the very first thing you do that next morning, you wake up, and before you start that next day, before you even tackle tomorrow's problems, you start with that self-care just to reset from that craziness that happened the day before, right? So that's also something to keep in mind. It's a little bit separated than that daily detox or that junk journal or any of those other methods that you had. It's going to be something that's actually catered to just you as far as your enjoyment. This should be fun, right? So that's the difference here. It can be those detox methods, but it doesn't have to be. Things for you to try that go a long way with little effort is focusing on what you can do as opposed to what you can't do. So that's kind of going into changing that mindset, right? But sometimes we don't even need to start thinking about those excuses. Just focus on one task at a time, one little thing. And so maybe it's, after I do this, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And once you've got that schedule, right, you've got this little list, if you will, to-do list of things, then you can go into scratching it off and not focusing on, well, if the store's closed, then I can't do this. And if, now I have to do this and this will take longer and now I can't. C'est la vie. It is what it is. Just get it done. Whatever you can't do, don't focus on it. If you're doing that running example from earlier, right? You're not a runner. Now you're saying to yourself, okay, well, I am going to be that disciplined person to become a better runner. So I'm working towards being a better runner. I'm a better runner. You're focusing on what you can do. So I'm going to run today. I'm going to run a little bit more tomorrow. I'm just going to run this. And take it for what it is. Take it as it's worth. Don't go, well, I can't run, a marathon today, so that's not going to happen. That whole sentence just weighs you down in so many different aspects. Emotionally, you feel defeated. Mentally, you just feel drained. You feel, again, that deflation, that kind of wow, punch in the gut kind of sensation. And physically, you just feel, well, my body's not the way it's meant to be. It's not built the way it should be. And so now you're just tearing yourself apart for literally no reason other than the fact you said you had to, right? Because you said you couldn't run a marathon. Therefore, this is the punishment. This is the consequence to that. So replacing those negatives, if they do surface, with a but and then adding to that sentence is a great way to start finding that curve, right? Because it's not going to happen overnight. And you're not going to be able to go to having a lot of negative thoughts to I have no negative thoughts the next day. That's just, nothing works that way. But being able to change it and slowly manipulate those sentences and manipulate that tactic, right? I can't run a marathon today, but if I keep practicing, I'm going to run that marathon by the end of the year. Boom, done. It's a goal now. Now it's a challenge for you to accept and embrace. And it's just that simple, right? Wow, I hate the way this dress makes me look today. But I know that maybe if I cinch a belt here, or maybe if I try on a different size or a different color, it might complement my features better. Boom, done, period, end of story. Moving on. Forgiving yourself is another huge part, right? So we want to practice patience with ourselves. We want to practice that acceptance, tying into those, changing those negative thoughts. It's not going to happen overnight, like I said, right? So being able to practice patience with yourself with like, man, why do I keep thinking this way? I don't want to think this way anymore. Be patient. It'll come with time. You just have to be consistent. Just like if you were at the gym, muscles don't grow overnight, neither does the brain, right? So just practicing patience. Accept where you're at today, accept the body where it's at today, accept the mind where it's at today, whether you're drained, whether it's a little bit negative, a little bit cloudy, a little bit fuzzy, wherever it's at, just embrace that and accept that that is the reality so that you can identify the baseline and only move forward, right? So finding a personal mantra and a mission statement is a good way to kind of tie into that as well. Just like our butts for our negatives, you want to think of a mantra or a one-liner, if you will, of something that's going to help you practice patience. Mine, I've said before, it's okay to not be okay. Because there's a lot of times where I'll go from 0 to 100 really quick as far as my career, my schedule, things get crazy. We're filming a challenge and then all of a sudden I'm getting pulled to do another fitness thing and I'm just all over the place and I'm traveling all over the state and I'm like, I have no sleep. I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. I'm not going to do anything right. And I start freaking out and then I had to take that moment and go, Cece, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to freak out right now, but let's schedule it so we don't feel this way, right? So being able to find that mission statement that lets you accept you for today. And again, that's very personalized. That's very up to you. There's dozens to find. Pinterest is a great place to start if you're one of those like I am. That's a great place to go find some inspiration. But moving on from that, you want to also cultivate a positive space. And that does mean online as well as in your bubble, right? So there's some things in your area, whether it's your workplace, so you've got coworkers, you've got a family, so you've got, people that you technically can't avoid being around or involved. But being able to cultivate a more positive space online is up to your control, right? If that person, Joe Schmo from the football team in high school, is super successful and he's putting his highlight reel, I like to call all social media profiles just highlight reels because that's really what they are, right? We're just posting the best of our world. So he's posting his great successful highlight reel on his, his Instagram page or whatever, and that makes you feel some type of way. No harm. No tea, no shade, no shame. Don't feel guilty about it. It's what it is. You're human. You're allowed to feel that way. Just go ahead and click the unsubscribe or unfollow or restrict, whatever that button is that's going to make you not see it as much, or just unfollow him. I'm sure he was a great friend in high school, but do you really talk to him? Is it really worth it? No? Okay, then it's okay. It's okay to keep your friend page, clean and up to date with who's in your bubble now, right? So that's another great thing. I have also briefly mentioned how to do this as far as adding stuff that make you feel good or make you more positive and uplifted. I love looking at landscapes. I eventually will go to Ireland. I'm obsessed with the landscape there. I'm obsessed with the cliffs with the waves crashing into the hillside and stuff. So being able to see a bunch of pictures on Ireland because I follow their hashtag makes my newsfeed happy. I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. And it's just that like little bit of positivity. It has nothing to do with anything else in my life, right? But it's bright and it's fun and it makes me smile. That's all that positive space for your newsfeed or who you follow has to really be about. It's just finding that one thing or few things that kind of break up your own little monotony of friends and family and all that stuff, just protecting what's creative and what's yours and what inspires you, right? Refilling that pitcher. That's what this is about. So, another thing that I personally like, it works for me. It might not work for everybody, but worth saying, getting groomed or polished up. We're going to go ahead and talk about that as far as what that means, right? So you want to think about getting, whether it's a haircut, color, a new style, adaptation of your wardrobe, anything like that. That's what's really going to help you feel refreshed physically, right? Your look's going to be different. So therefore you feel more confident in yourself. So if you've been debating whether or not you go and do that new spicy hair color that you've been dying to try it. You might love it. Worth getting a day at, the salon or, trying new things. Same thing with this also ties into getting a workout in, right? Feeling good, feeling confident by, getting that body that you want, that workout that you want, that endurance that you feel. That also ties into getting a better physical you, a physical appearance, a reflection that you genuinely enjoy. Also being able to spend some quality time with yourself. That's a great thing. Those and those tie in back to meditation, reading, unplugging, staying away from all that digital and just being able to just hone in on yourself, finding maybe even just sleeping, just taking a 5-minute nap, something to really just help you feel refreshed and pampered. This also is just not going to be fair if I don't mention some Halloween, right? We are in the season. So, with Hallows Eve quickly approaching, let me give you some quick self-care ideas that are ghoulishly fun and festive. You can always try those slasher movies, or if horror's not your theme, those like Halloween theme movies, you've got plenty. You've got Nightmare Before Christmas, The Sanderson Sisters, Halloween Town, all the classics that you can imagine or that just popped into your head when we started talking about them. Doing a movie night, cuddling up in the blankets, making some hot cocoa, even though it's 80 degrees outside, maybe, right? This is where you get to feel fun and festive and just let go. Likewise, seeing Halloween lighting or decor, if you're not into decorating yourself, there's dozens of places or neighborhoods I'm sure that you can go explore, walk around, and kind of embrace the season. Taking that moment that it does start to cool off and it does feel a little bit more like fall, take that, pumpkin spice latte of yours out to the street and start taking a nice stroll, maybe with a friend, and enjoy some good company, great weather, and that really warm feeling, getting some hot cocoa or coffee. But yeah, and definitely don't forget the best of all. At Yes.Fit, we've been jotting down some fun little recipes, some healthy but fun festive snacks on our blog. I personally, if you follow me at cc_fitness17 on Instagram, you can see me bake a few of these. So Halloween festive goodies, little healthy desserts. That'll be something that's very fun, that you can decorate and make your own as well. So that's basically what I have for you today. Just take a moment for yourself, find those methods for you, right? Understand how you work and how you de-stress, and then make yourself that priority. I will see you guys next time. Stay safe, be festive, and have a happy Halloween.